Okay, today I'm going to show you guys how to can a really simple recipe. So if you've never canned before, you want to try it out, this is the one to do. Okay, we're going to use Mrs. Wages. And when you're canning, remember you have to have a safe canning recipe. You can't just start canning up your own stuff. That's not how it works. If you wanted to make up your own recipe, you could find your local extension office and you could have one of your jars tested. They could test it, make sure it's safe, and then you would know it's okay. But otherwise, you always use a safe, trusted recipe. And if you have questions about that, just let me know. Get your good 90s music going because you're gonna need that. And then we'll go ahead and start. So I'll show you guys how this works. All right, so first you're gonna first I should probably tell you what we're making. We're gonna make something tomato based. I'll show you the options in a minute, but first you're gonna need to blanch and peel your tomatoes. There are a couple of recipes where you can leave the skin on the tomatoes. There's two that I know of. Otherwise, the skin's gotta come off. It's full of bacteria. It just has a high bacterial load. And so what we're gonna do, we got our pot of boiling water and we've got a nice bath. And we're just gonna take our tomatoes. And if you've got a tomato with a bad spot, like this one had a bad spot on it, so I just cut it out. That's fine. Don't throw your whole tomato away just because it's got a bad spot. Okay, so we're gonna just start plopping tomatoes in here. And stuff like this, that's fine. That's gonna come off anyway when we core them. I try to kind of get ones that are the same ripeness, because the ones that are really ripe, the skin starts peeling off of them first. So anyway, we're just gonna throw some tomatoes in here. What can I say? Okay. That's probably good for now. Okay, so we're gonna leave them in here for about a minute. Sometimes they're done a little earlier and sometimes they take a little bit longer. We don't wanna overcook them because they'll get mushy. If you're making sauce, that's not that big of a deal, but it's hard to peel them when they're mushy. And if we don't cook them enough, you cannot get the skin off and it's just a pain in the arse. So let's see. I'm gonna show you, sometimes they'll start to kind of split. If they start to split, take them out right away. You don't necessarily have to wait for them to split either. If they've been in for about a minute, then you should be okay. And this little guy will probably be done first. Not only did we put him in first, but I cut him, so. Okay, I'm gonna pull him out. Try to get most of your water off. And then we're gonna put him right in here. And we'll just keep doing that. This one looks like it's done. Sometimes you can just tell. They get like this, I don't know, kind of shiny, plump look to them, I guess. Oh, now this one's splitting. You see that? So we gotta get that one out right away. Sometimes, I think these yellow ones tend to go a little faster. This one's splitting too. I'm gonna pull this one out. Okay. You see what I mean? They look kind of like plump and shiny. I don't know. I might be crazy. That one's splitting. And we got one more. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure these are getting good and cold. We're kind of shocking them. And then while those are cooling down, I just come back over here and I start throwing more tomatoes in. And we're just gonna keep doing this. Gotta have good music when you're cooking. All right, we'll call that good for now. Oh, here I got another one that I cut because it was yucky. And then as soon as these are cooled down enough and you feel like they're, like I wouldn't even really want them warm, but as long as you can peel them, we will core them and peel them, and I'll come back and show you that. Okay, Noah has joined us. He's gonna hold the camera, so if it looks like he has Parkinson's, that's why. Okay, so these are the packets I'm talking about. Mrs. Wages. There's a bunch of different kinds of packets, but we're gonna make one of these. Pizza sauce, pasta sauce. I already have pasta sauce made last time, so we're gonna do pizza sauce. And I'll tell you, this pizza sauce is the bomb. Right, Noah?
Yep.
Really good. Best pizza sauce ever. Okay, so if you look at the back of the package, it'll tell you what you need. It says it makes 5 pints. In my experience, that ends up being like 4.5, but we'll see. You need 6 pounds of fresh tomatoes, or about 18 medium tomatoes. Quit moving the camera. Here. You can use canned tomatoes from the store. I think that's weird, but I mean, you do you. 5 tablespoons of sugar, and then one of these pouches. So it'll tell you how to blanch the tomatoes, which we already did. And then we're looking for how many cups do we need? I feel like it's 10. Yes, 10 cups of tomatoes. You see that? 10 cups of tomatoes. So I'm going to show you how I do this because we puree the tomatoes. So Ivor's in the kitchen now too, so just don't mind. Okay, so what you're going to do, I just kind of get my pot here to catch the juice. Tomatoes are acidic, and we need the acidity when we're canning. So any of the juices that run out, you actually have to put back into the sauce. I didn't know that years ago, and I used to save all the juice, and then I would make tomato soup, as you can see in some of my other YouTube videos. But we're following rules now. So you're gonna take your tomato that was in your ice bath, and I'm gonna core it. So I just kind of go inside around the top and get that core out. So that looks like this. Okay, and I'm gonna give that to the chickens. You can save your tomato skins, dehydrate them, and make a tomato powder. I'm just gonna give them to the chickens because I don't have time for that. At least they're not going to waste, right? I got one little bad spot here. I'm just gonna cut that guy out. Otherwise our skin is off, okay? And then, see if I can get my blender open. There we go. I'm just gonna cut this into, I don't know, quarters, just so that it easily fits in my blender. Can they see the blender? Okay, so we're gonna come back once I have this blender full. Okay, I got my first blender full of tomatoes, and I started just peeling them over the top. That was easier. Oh, if you're wondering why I'm wearing gloves, it's because I cut my finger and trying to keep the Band-Aid dry here. Plus, tomatoes are very acidic, and after peeling them like all day, you'll notice your hands are not in good shape. So, okay, we got our blender full, and we are going to turn it on here, and I'm just gonna pulse. Now this is pizza sauce, so we want to, you know, get it pretty good. All right, I think that's good. Now we might have created a little air in here while we were like whipping up the tomatoes. I'm gonna let it settle just a little bit, and then we're gonna dump it into the pot, and we're gonna get 10 cups. We need 10 cups total. All right, so that ended up being 8 cups. Got a couple more, what I think is about a couple cups in here. This does not have to be perfect. It says about 18 tomatoes. If you do 18 tomatoes and it ends up being 11 cups, that's fine. Yeah, you're fine there. The other thing you can do, you guys, and this is awesome, I did this. You core your tomatoes, just core them. Leave the skin on them, just core them. Lay them on a baking sheet, freeze them. And when you unthaw them, the skins just slip right off. But you got to remember all the liquid that's in the bag, you got to put that in with your stuff. So let's blend this up. Okay, so this ended up being 3 cups. So like I said, we've got 11 cups. That's okay. It's not gonna hurt anything. So we're gonna add this to the pot. All right, we've got our 10 cups, which is really 11, but yes, 10 cups of tomatoes in here. I am going to add that 5 tablespoons of sugar. That's purely for flavor, you guys. So if you don't want to add it, that's okay. It's not like gonna affect the safety of it. And then we're gonna go ahead and add our packet. This like could not be easier. We're gonna stir this up and get it simmering, and then this is actually gonna simmer for 25 minutes. But if you have really like watery tomatoes, then you might have to like cook it down a little bit. Like I said, I used to kind of squeeze the tomatoes out and I'd save the juice, but you can't do that, I found out. So just teaching you guys the safe way. You could also use paste tomatoes. Those are much less juicy and actually made for sauces. I grew Amish paste tomatoes this year and those seem to work really good. All right, so we're gonna get this up to a boil and then let it simmer for 25 minutes and then we'll be back. Okay, so while this is simmering, let me turn it up a little bit. It was boiling, I turned it down. Okay, there we go. Just get that simmering again. We're gonna get our jars ready. So a couple things about jars. We used to think that you had to put the lids into like a little saucepan and have them boiling. They actually found out that was like affecting the seals on them, so don't do that anymore. You can wash them with warm soapy water and then just lay them out like this. I lay my rings out. And then this is another thing, so you can put your jars in the water bath to keep them warm or in the steamer. I'm clumsy and I just have trouble doing that. So I did ask a master food preserver and she said as long as they're really hot, it's fine if you want to leave them in the sink full of water. So that's what I do. And this isn't really a safety issue, it's more of a risk for thermal shock. So if your jar is cold, you put your hot food in it, put it in the canner, it'll break, so we don't want that. So like I said, not really a safety concern, but more of a risk of breaking jars. And then you've got a giant mess. You don't want that either. So we're just gonna let those sit really nice and hot. We've got our lids ready. We're simmering our sauce. And while this is simmering, we can talk just a little bit about adding things to your recipes, okay? So let's say you find this safe, tested recipe, but you tried it and it's like really bland and you're like, ugh, this is gross, I want to add something to it. There are things that you can add that are safe. I'm not an expert, but I know a lot of them, I feel like. You can add any dried spices. So you can add garlic salt, you can add onion powder, dried herbs. That is all fine. You cannot add anything fresh to it. Like I said, sugar you can decrease. Like vinegar, it has to be 5%. It can be any kind of vinegar. So red wine vinegar, apple cider vinegar, whatever kind of vinegar you want to use. You can use brown sugar, but I've heard that it can make things bitter. So I just use white sugar. If there's anything you want to add, you can ask me. If I don't know the answer, I will find out for you. These Mrs. Wages packets are so good, you don't need to add anything to them. This pizza sauce, I'm telling you, it's phenomenal. And I don't add anything to it. So as you can see, it's kind of thickening up here. And I noticed those yellow tomatoes, they definitely are juicier. So, but you know, it will thicken up when it's canned as well. It's a little loose still right now. So we'll just keep going. I think we got about another 15-20 minutes here. And then I'll show you guys my steam canner, because that's what we'll be using today. And if you don't have a steam canner, I highly recommend getting one. It's like a game changer. All right, I'm just getting these extra hot again, just to make sure they're nice and hot. They did sit in the sink for a little bit. All right. So, are you ready? This is the hard part, right? Well, it's actually not hard. I'm going to show you. I got a wet paper towel, funnel, ladle. Okay, ready to go? So this is my steam canner. This is exciting. Let's talk about it. This is a Fruit Saver steam canner. I got it for Christmas. You seriously need one of these. First of all, it's way less heavy. It just has a little bit of water in it. It's less hot. So like when it's, 112 degrees outside, like today, it's not going to make my whole kitchen hot. So I just have this kind of simmering. So I'm going to take the lid off here. Okay, so that's nice and warm. And then actually, now that I took the lid off, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit and just kind of get it boiling. And then we're gonna go ahead and do this. I'm gonna try to do this with one hand, you guys. We'll see how talented I am. Okay, so we're gonna take a hot jar, dump it out. It's nice and hot. Put our funnel in here. We're gonna get our pizza sauce, give it a good stir. And we're gonna fill this jar up. Got some MC Hammer going on in the background. Perfect canning music, right? And I just realized I forgot to check the packet. I think it's 1/2 inch headspace. We better look. Okay. Let me grab the packet. All right, so, oh, 1 inch headspace. Wow, that seems like a lot. Okay, well, that's what it says, so that's what we're gonna do. And I put this mat under here, otherwise we get messy. Actually, that is about 1 inch. Look at that. Dang, I'm good. Okay, so I just use this end to debubble. I just kind of stir it around. And you're gonna make a mess. This is why my kitchen is always a mess. 1 inch, right on the dot. You see that? Looks great. Then we are gonna take our wet paper towel and we're just gonna wipe the ring. Make sure there's no food particles or anything on there. And then we're gonna put our lid on. And this is gonna be fingertip tight, and I can't do that with the phone, so hold on. Okay, fingertips, so tight and then just a little bit more, like 1/4 of a turn more. We're gonna take this guy and we're gonna put him right on the canner. And I kinda got that turned up now, so it should start boiling. So I'm gonna repeat that. We're gonna do one at a time. You can't throw them all, you can't stage them, that's what they call it. You can't do that. So one at a time, we're just gonna go through and fill these. This used to like really stress me out, and I would be like freaking out and like thought I had to do this at like, you know, some insane speed. You don't, just relax. I learned over time, it's better if you just relax and enjoy what you're doing. Turn on some music, because it's all good, right? What's the worst that could happen? Okay, so we got that one. Let's debubble it. This one might be a little high on headspace. We're gonna check it. Yep, just a little bit. So what do you do if that happens? You grab a spoon, or, yeah, this will work. This is just what I had handy. I'm just gonna take a couple teaspoons out. All right, let's check it now. That's still a little high. There we go, that looks good. If you don't have one of these little tools, there is markings on the side kind of showing you like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1 inch. Okay. I'm gonna wipe our rim, put our lid on, and I'm just gonna keep doing this. All right, I got all 5 pints in there, and I think what I meant is it usually makes 5.5 because I have some left. And what I'll do is I'll do pizza and I'll do pasta, and then that last half I'll just mix together and I'll call it pizza pasta. It's pretty much the same thing anyway. Okay, so we need to get our steamer going here. So I've got it cranked up all the way. I'm gonna put the lid back on. Okay. And we want the fruit saver to be reading towards us. And I'm gonna show you. Okay, you see that hole back there? So steam is gonna start coming out of that hole. We're gonna count a minute of steam coming out of that hole, and then we can go ahead and start our timer. Now the pizza sauce, sorry, everything's all messy now. You're gonna have tomatoes like all over your kitchen like me. It says right here, process jars for 40 minutes. Also, if you're processing for more than 10 minutes, you do not have to sterilize your jars. So if you have a jam recipe and it says to process for 5 minutes, just process it for 10 and then you don't have to sterilize your jars. Like, that's the easy way to do it. There's also a little like temperature gauge up here. This is solely reading the temperature. It has nothing to do with the pressure, the steam. It's just reading the temperature. For our zone, we're supposed to be over here in the dark green, and I can hardly ever get it there. I did ask one of the master food preservers about that as well, and she was not concerned. As long as we have a steady stream of steam coming out of the back. Here you can see it starting to puff out. So, yep, see that? It's just starting to puff out. So we're gonna let that go for a minute, get a nice steady stream of steam coming out of there. And then we also wanna start turning it down because this lid is gonna start rocking and we don't want that. So I'm just turning it down. I'm sure Facebook's not gonna like my music. They're gonna be like, oh, copyright, blah, blah, blah. We'll see. Okay, let's peek at it. So we got steam coming out, and there we go, it's getting more steady. It'll be just a steady stream here in a second. This takes just a second to get right, but I want to show you guys that way when you're on your own and you're like, oh my god, what am I doing? You can refer back to this video and then you'll be fine. The lid's not rocking. Steam is coming out good. Oh, the lid is starting to rock. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, you see that? How it's lifting up? I don't know if you can see it good in the video, but we need to turn it down. And I kind of know where the sweet spot is on my stove. It's about right here, but I'm just going to keep kind of showing you how you regulate it. There, it's lifting up. You can see the lid lifting up, so we're going to keep going down. All right, we can go ahead and start our timer now. Alexa, set a timer for 40 minutes.
40 minutes, starting now.
All right, we got our timer going. And then I just kind of make sure everything looks good. We got steam coming out. The lid is not rocking anymore. So now you're good. You can go ahead and start cleaning up your dishes, or like I'm gonna start making pasta sauce. Every once in a while, just go and glance at it. If for some reason you come over here and there's not steam coming out, you would want to add time to your timer or start over, so try not to do that. Once it's coming out good and you kind of know your stove, it takes a little bit of practice, but I know that we're going to be good right here, so I'll be back in 40 minutes. Alexa, dismiss. Okay, our 40-minute timer is up. We're gonna shut this off. And this is supposed to sit for 5 minutes. For time's sake, I'm only gonna let it sit for a couple. The biggest problem if you don't let it sit for a couple minutes is siphoning. So you could bring your jars out, the temperature in the air is too cold and it causes some of the liquid and stuff to come out of the jar. I've only had that happen a couple of times, and I'm not gonna lie, it's like 78 degrees in here, so I think we're fine. I've also got my pasta sauce going because I'm doing that next. But for time's sake, we're gonna say it's been a few minutes. We're gonna go ahead and lift this off. Be careful, it's very hot. You do not want to get burned. Make sure there's no small children around. And we are gonna lift these straight up. Do not be tempted to tilt the jar to get the water off, okay? You do not want to do that. They go straight up and out, and that water will evaporate, so you don't have to worry about it, okay? Okay, so we're gonna get these all put on my towel, and I'm gonna leave enough room for my next jars. Now these have to sit for a minimum of 12 hours, 12 to 24 hours to seal. So for goodness sakes, whatever you do not touch these jars. My kids have been like trained. Aaron, do we touch the jars? No, you don't touch the jars. So you might be tempted after a few hours. You're like, ooh, I want to touch one and see if the lid is down. Okay, if you do that and you touch it and the lid goes down, now you just created a false seal and it's got to go in the refrigerator. So do not do that. They have to seal completely on their own, otherwise they are not shelf stable. You can get botulism or whatever, and we don't want that. High acid foods though usually will present with mold, so you're more concerned about botulism when you're pressure canning. But anyway, these are going to sit just like this for at least 12 hours. I just let them sit overnight and I get to them the next day. You want to get to them within 24 hours though, because if you take the rings off and lift them up by the lid and the lid comes off, it didn't seal correctly. It has happened to me a few times and it can go into the refrigerator. So yeah, just let them sit. So that's it. Oh, did you hear that? One just popped. It's like the most satisfying sound ever. I love it. So yeah, you'll notice a little popping happening as you're hanging out. So yeah, we're all done. That wasn't so hard. Let me know if you have any questions. Fresh pasta sauce for the winter. No, this is pizza sauce, sorry. Fresh pizza sauce for the winter.